In a striking development that underscores the evolving dynamics of U.S. foreign policy, Senator Marco Rubio has issued a stark warning to Venezuela regarding its treatment of citizens living abroad. If the Venezuelan government fails to repatriate its citizens, the U.S. is prepared to impose additional sanctions. This ultimatum, articulated during a Senate Foreign Relations Committee meeting, reflects growing frustration over Venezuela's inaction in addressing the plight of its nationals who have sought refuge in other countries. The context of Rubio's statement hinges on a broader narrative of humanitarian concern and international responsibility. The Venezuelan diaspora, reportedly in the millions, faces myriad challenges in their host nations, often living in precarious conditions. It is the moral duty of any government to protect its citizens regardless of where they find themselves, Rubio asserted, emphasizing that the lack of action from Venezuela is unacceptable. He pointed out that the continued failure to facilitate the return of these individuals could lead to more stringent measures by the U.S. government. The implications of these potential sanctions are significant. They reflect a strategic shift in U.S. policy toward Venezuela, which has long been under scrutiny for its human rights record and governance issues. By threatening further economic penalties, the U.S. is not only aiming to pressure the Venezuelan government into action but also signaling its commitment to uphold the rights and welfare of its citizens abroad. This approach resonates with the sentiments expressed by various advocacy groups that have long called for a more robust response to the Venezuelan crisis. Additionally, the discussion surrounding Venezuela dovetails with ongoing concerns regarding Afghan allies who remain stranded following the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. In a separate yet related statement, Senator Jeanne Shaheen, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, criticized President Trump's recent executive order that halted resettlement efforts for Afghan special immigrant visa (SIV) applicants. Shaheen highlighted that thousands of Afghan allies who risked their lives supporting U.S. forces are now vulnerable to Taliban reprisals. We must stand by this promise, she urged, calling for urgent action to lift travel restrictions for these individuals. The intersection of these two narratives reflects a critical moment in U.S. foreign relations, where the treatment of citizens, whether at home or abroad, has become a focal point of policy discussion. With both Venezuela and the situation in Afghanistan, the U.S. faces mounting pressure to demonstrate that it will honor its commitments to those who have supported its missions overseas. As the international landscape continues to evolve, observers will be keenly watching how the Venezuelan government responds to the U.S. sanctions threat and whether the Biden administration will take decisive action to assist Afghan allies still in peril. The stakes are high and the outcomes may set precedents for how the U.S. engages in similar humanitarian crises in the future. In a sweeping move that has sent shockwaves through the Pentagon, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has initiated a plan to reduce the Department of Defense's civilian workforce by more than 50,000 personnel. This significant reduction, which is part of a broader effort by the Trump administration to streamline federal operations, reflects a strategic shift in how the military intends to manage its resources amidst ongoing global conflicts. During a recent off-camera press briefing, senior defense officials detailed the mechanisms being employed to facilitate this reduction. The Pentagon is currently placing over 20,000 employees on administrative leave, paving the way for their eventual termination. This initiative is linked to a controversial program dubbed the Fork in the Road, inspired by tech billionaire Elon Musk, which allows federal employees to voluntarily resign while still receiving pay until their departure date. Today, the department has approved more than 20,000 applications for employees that volunteered to participate in the deferred resignation program, one official stated, indicating that these departures would occur gradually, with many expected to leave by the end of 2025. Under Hegseth's directive, the DoD aims to cut 5% to 8% of its civilian workforce, which currently stands at approximately 800,000. This reduction translates to a loss of up to 60,000 positions. The strategy involves three primary methods: allowing voluntary resignations, terminating probationary employees, and enforcing a hiring freeze that will naturally decrease the workforce through attrition. Without having to remove any existing employees, the hiring freeze creates around 6,000 civilian workforce slots each month due to natural turnover, explained a senior official. This drastic workforce reduction comes amidst a broader agenda to enhance military readiness and operational efficiency. Hegseth's push for a leaner DoD has drawn both support and criticism, particularly concerning its potential effects on military effectiveness. Critics argue that the cuts could jeopardize essential functions and intelligence capabilities, especially as the U.S. continues to navigate complex international landscapes, including ongoing tensions in Ukraine and the Middle East. In parallel to these cuts, Hegseth has been under scrutiny for his controversial approach to military legal practices. Reports have emerged regarding plans to overhaul the Judge Advocate General's Corps aimed at easing legal restrictions on military operations. Such moves, coupled with the elimination of offices focused on civilian protection, raise concerns about the ethical implications of U.S. military conduct. Critics have likened this approach to a shift towards more aggressive tactics, potentially undermining human rights standards. What we're witnessing is a troubling alignment of military policy with a more draconian view of warfare, noted Rosa Brooks, a law professor at Georgetown. Despite the political backlash, Hegseth remains resolute in his belief that the staffing cuts can be achieved without compromising military readiness. As the DoD navigates these tumultuous changes, the long-term impacts on both personnel and operational integrity remain to be seen. With federal judges already challenging some of the administration's steps against probationary workers, the future of the DoD's workforce strategy may face significant legal hurdles. Looking ahead, the Pentagon's ongoing restructuring is likely to influence not only its internal dynamics but also its role on the global stage. As the military grapples with these changes, the interplay between efficiency and ethical governance will be critical in shaping public perception and operational effectiveness. As the administration continues to redefine its defense strategy, the implications of these workforce reductions will resonate far beyond the halls of the Pentagon. In a significant shift in U.S. health policy, Secretary of Health and Human Services Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has announced an aggressive initiative targeting the safety and nutritional quality of infant formula. This move comes amid rising consumer concerns about heavy metal contamination in popular baby foods, a topic that has gained traction in the public discourse over the past few years. As Kennedy embarks on this endeavor, the implications for the infant formula industry and public health could be profound. Kennedy's announcement, made during a recent meeting with executives from leading baby formula manufacturers, signals a heightened scrutiny of the ingredients used in these products. The new directive will see the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) conducting a comprehensive examination of nutrients in infant formula, as well as increasing testing for harmful contaminants. This initiative, dubbed Operation Stork Speed, aims to enhance the nutritional profile of formula products to more closely resemble breast milk, an objective that has garnered support from industry stakeholders. Scott Stoffel, a spokesperson for Abbott Laboratories, one of the major players in the infant formula market, expressed optimism about collaborating with the FDA and scientific communities to improve their products. Each ingredient in our formulas is purposefully chosen for the type of baby we're feeding and their unique dietary needs, he stated, underscoring the company's commitment to safety and nutrition. However, the backdrop to this initiative is troubling. Recent studies, including one from Consumer Reports, have uncovered alarming levels of heavy metals in various infant formula brands. The report indicated that Abbott's Elecare hypoallergenic and Similac Alimentum products exhibited the highest concentrations of inorganic arsenic among the 41 powdered formulas tested. Meanwhile, Reckitt's Enfamil Nutramigen reportedly contained lead levels that were in some cases double those found in competing products. Kennedy's focus on these issues is not new. He has previously expressed concerns about the safety of infant formulas, particularly regarding heavy metal contamination. During his presidential campaign, he pledged to reform the FDA's approach to food safety, a promise that is now being put into action as he leads the agency. As these developments unfold, the infant formula industry faces a critical juncture. The increased regulatory scrutiny could lead to significant changes in manufacturing practices and ingredient sourcing, potentially reshaping the market landscape. The immediate impact has already been felt on Wall Street, with shares of major formula producers like Abbott and Reckitt experiencing declines following the announcement. The implications of Kennedy's initiative extend beyond corporate interests, as it underscores a growing demand for transparency and safety in the food supply. Parents and caregivers are increasingly seeking assurance that the products they rely on for their infants are free from harmful contaminants, and this initiative may serve as a catalyst for broader reforms in food safety regulations. As the FDA embarks on this comprehensive review, the outcomes will be closely watched by stakeholders across the spectrum, from health advocates to investors. The success of Operation Stork Speed could redefine standards for infant nutrition and set a precedent for how food safety is managed in the United States. As the landscape evolves, consumers can expect a more rigorous examination of the products they trust for their children's health, potentially leading to safer and more nutritious options on the market. In a dramatic escalation of tensions surrounding Tesla and its outspoken CEO Elon Musk, Attorney General Pam Bondi has labeled recent acts of vandalism against the company as domestic terrorism. This declaration comes as a response to a series of targeted attacks on Tesla dealerships and vehicles, which have been linked to ongoing protests against Musk's controversial efforts to reduce the size of the federal government and cut jobs. The incidents, which include defacement and destruction of Tesla property across various cities, have raised alarms about the increasingly volatile environment surrounding political dissent in America. On Tuesday, Bondi's strong words echoed sentiments expressed by President Trump, who suggested on a Fox News interview that the vandalism was orchestrated by politically motivated individuals on the left. The swarm of violent attacks on Tesla property is nothing short of domestic terrorism, Ms. Bondi stated in a press release, emphasizing that investigations will be pursued vigorously to identify and prosecute those responsible, including any individuals funding or coordinating the acts. While there is currently no specific federal law categorizing such actions as domestic terrorism, Bondi indicated that offenders could face severe penalties under existing federal statutes, potentially leading to prison sentences of 5 years or more. The recent surge of vandalism began to escalate following Musk's announcement of significant layoffs and cuts to government programs, which have sparked backlash among various activist groups. Incidents reported include vandalism at a Tesla facility in Las Vegas, where 5 vehicles were set ablaze, and defacement with anti-Musk slogans at a dealership in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Local law enforcement, alongside federal agencies like the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, are now involved in investigating these crimes, which include a shooting at a Tesla dealership in Tigard, Oregon. Bondi's comments have drawn attention not only for their incendiary nature but also for the context in which they were made. Congressional Republicans, including Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, have been vocal in their support for labeling these acts as domestic terrorism, reflecting a broader narrative that seeks to frame dissent against certain business practices as threats to national security. This stance follows a contentious history in American politics concerning the classification of extremist groups and acts of violence, particularly in the wake of the January 6 Capitol riots, which Bondi previously defended through her support of clemency for those involved. As the investigations unfold, the implications of Bondi's remarks and the government's response to these acts of vandalism will be closely watched. Critics suggest that labeling the vandalism as domestic terrorism could set a worrying precedent for how dissent is treated in the political landscape. With Musk's polarizing influence on both the tech industry and political discourse, the situation may continue to escalate, raising questions about the balance between protest and criminality in contemporary America. Looking ahead, the ongoing investigations into the vandalism at Tesla facilities and the political discourse surrounding it will likely influence both public opinion and policy. As the government seeks to address these incidents, the broader implications for civil liberties and the treatment of political dissent remain critical areas for discussion. Given the volatile intersection of technology, politics, and public sentiment, it will be essential to monitor how this situation develops in the coming months. particularly as Musk continues to navigate his controversial role in both the business and political arenas. In a rapidly evolving economic landscape, discussions surrounding tariffs, government spending, and potential recession have come to the forefront as key players in the U.S. administration outline their strategies for the future. As President Donald Trump remains committed to implementing reciprocal tariffs starting April 2, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is making headlines with his candid views on fiscal responsibility and economic management. During a recent podcast appearance, Bessent characterized himself as a deficit hawk, emphasizing the need for prudent fiscal policies amidst pressures from Republican lawmakers to enact swift spending cuts. "I actually have to coax them. You can't do this all at once," Bessent remarked, highlighting the complexities of balancing aggressive deficit reduction with the need for economic stability. His comments underscore a growing concern among economists that rapid cuts to government spending could undermine economic growth, as every $300 billion reduction translates to roughly 1 percentage point of GDP. Bessent's perspective aligns with the administration's broader economic agenda, which aims to deleverage the government while simultaneously releveraging the private sector. He noted that the U.S. does not face a revenue problem but rather a spending problem, emphasizing the importance of streamlining government expenditures. His plan involves not only cutting excess labor from the public sector but also deregulating the financial system, which he described as a regulatory corset that hinders economic agility. In a noteworthy intersection of traditional economics and cryptocurrency, Bessent expressed his support for initiatives led by Elon Musk, specifically referencing the Department of Government Efficiency (DOGE). With DOGE, "I am completely aligned with what Elon's doing," he stated, pointing to the potential for innovative strategies to cut wasteful government spending. However, he acknowledged the challenges of implementing such changes, rapidly warning that inertia from entrenched interests could impede progress. As the administration grapples with these fiscal strategies, concerns about a potential recession loom large. Bessent admitted, "I can't guarantee that the U.S. will avoid an economic downturn," a statement that reflects the uncertainty that often accompanies significant policy shifts. His remarks come as the administration navigates a delicate balance between stimulating growth and curbing spending. These developments occur against a backdrop of fluctuating equity markets, with investors keenly watching the implications of government policy on stock performance. The SPDR S&P 500 ETF Trust and Invesco QQQ Trust, which track the S&P 500 Index and NASDAQ 100 Index respectively, showed modest gains in the face of this economic turbulence. Looking ahead, the administration's approach to tariff, spending cuts, and economic stimulation will undoubtedly shape the future landscape of the U.S. economy. As Bessent and other officials continue to advocate for a measured approach to fiscal policy, the interplay between government action and market reaction will remain a critical focus for investors, policymakers, and the public alike. The coming months will reveal whether these strategies can effectively mitigate the risks of recession while fostering sustainable economic growth. In a significant pivot towards satellite technology and broadband connectivity, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has urged federal officials to consider Elon Musk's Starlink as a key player in a $42 billion rural broadband initiative. This recommendation, made during a recent private meeting at the Herbert Hoover Building, raises eyebrows regarding potential conflicts of interest. Given Lutnick's close ties to Musk and the Trump administration, Evan Feinman, the former director of the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment BEAD program, recounted that Lutnick specifically encouraged the increased use of satellite connectivity, directly referencing Musk's Starlink. He mentioned Musk by name. He asked if we had been talking with Elon, Feinman remarked. The clear thrust of his directive was to increase the amount of satellite being used regardless of any other considerations. This directive comes amidst ongoing criticisms from Republicans regarding perceived bureaucratic hurdles that have slowed the deployment of broadband in underserved areas. Lutnick's push for Starlink is particularly noteworthy given the services cost approximately $120 per month, making it significantly more expensive than traditional fiber optic broadband, which provides a more durable and cost-effective solution for most communities. Feynman pointed out that while satellite connectivity may serve some remote areas, fiber optic infrastructure remains superior in terms of performance and longevity. Fiber optic cable remains operable for decades at extraordinarily low maintenance and operation costs, he stated, underscoring the challenges Starlink faces in meeting future connectivity demands. The potential implications of Lutnick's suggestions are profound. Reports indicate that his proposed changes to the BEAD program could funnel as much as $20 billion in contracts to Starlink, a figure vastly exceeding what the company might have received under the previous structure. Critics such as Michigan Democratic lawmaker Debbie Dingell have labeled these maneuvers as a blatant conflict of interest, raising concerns about the integrity of taxpayer-funded initiatives. I am concerned that the Trump administration is pushing changes that would directly benefit Elon Musk by funneling billions of taxpayer dollars to his Starlink service, Dingell expressed during a congressional hearing. Notably, the White House has recently installed Starlink on its own grounds to bolster Wi-Fi connectivity, an endorsement that further complicates the narrative surrounding Lutnick's advocacy. In contrast, several states with advanced broadband rollout plans, including Louisiana, Nevada, and Delaware, have opted for more traditional providers like Verizon and Comcast, highlighting the skepticism surrounding the viability of satellite solutions in addressing widespread connectivity needs. As Lutnick seeks to overhaul the BEAD program, his ties to Musk and the broader implications of prioritizing satellite connectivity over more established technologies could lead to significant shifts in how rural broadband initiatives are executed. Given that the debate continues over the best path forward for enhancing broadband access in underserved areas, Lutnick's actions will likely be scrutinized closely by lawmakers and industry stakeholders alike. Looking ahead, the intersection of technology policy and private interests will remain a critical area to watch. The outcome of Lutnick's plans alongside Musk's ongoing influence could reshape not just the landscape of broadband access in the United States but also the broader discourse on how federal resources are allocated in the technology sector. As these developments unfold, the balance between innovation and regulation will be tested, potentially setting precedents for future governmental partnerships with private sector leaders.